Well, hello everybody. John Maddox here on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, coming to you with an exciting announcement. Even on this sad day when the memorial for George Floyd is taking place. And I know along with you, we all pray for him and his family. We also pray for healing and reconciliation that comes from a heart of love, respect, and the acknowledgement of the inherent worth and dignity of all people who are created in God's image. May his memory be eternal. Well, today I'm joined by a familiar face and voice to anyone who listens to AFR or reads the Ancient Faith published books. He is Father Andrew Stephen Damick, a longtime friend and partner with this ministry through his books, his podcasts, and his blogs. He is also a respected priest of the Antiochian Archdiocese, serving at St. Paul's Antiochian Orthodox Church in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. And Father Andrew, it's great to have you on today.
Thank you so much, John. I'm really excited.
So, just curious for our listeners and viewers, how long have you been associated with us? And do you remember how that came about?
You and I met in 2009, and that was the beginning of my friendship with Ancient Faith Ministries. Although, of course, I'd listened to Ancient Faith and read some of the books and stuff before that. But you and I met at the Missions and Evangelism Conference that took place at the Antiochian Village that September of 2009. I was a brand new pastor, just a few months, having taken the parish in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, although I had served for a couple years as an assistant pastor before that in West Virginia. And when we met, I was soon going to be delivering the Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy parish education lectures
Yep.
at St. Paul's. And, in the course of our conversation, that came up, and you suggested you wanted to send me a recorder. And so when I got home, it was waiting for me there. And the rest, for me at least, is history. So it's been 11 years now.
Really seems like it's flown by because I remember very distinctly that day at Antiochian Village and still trying to figure out who you were, and you were trying to figure out who we were. And but when I started listening to those podcasts, I knew we had a winner right off the bat. And it's just been marvelous to see the way you have advanced the content and therefore also advanced the mission and ministry of Ancient Faith. So thank you for that. What have you observed about your involvement here in terms of listener and reader to reaction to the content you create?
Yeah, so what I've seen is that people have a big hunger for media that is faithfully Orthodox Christian. That's also accessible in style and also engages all aspects of our culture. People want to live their faith in a way that's about their whole life, not just one part. We don't want to be Sunday morning only Christians. And I love being involved in that. And so over the years, I found that Ancient Faith is the perfect place to work on that engagement. And, we pretty much have the same mission. So it was kind of a match made in heaven, really.
It really is a melting together of missions, and I learned early on, in getting to know you, your heart for evangelism, reading some of the articles you've written, and cheering along with that sense of urgency that it is our duty as Orthodox Christians to spread the gospel. Oftentimes we hear the injunction, "Come and see," and you always reminded us. Go and tell.
Yeah, right.
That's what we're supposed to do in addition to come and see. So thank you for your heart for evangelism, your heart for missions. And with that, I just wanted to make a very special announcement today. We're very pleased to inform our audience that effective August 1st, and with the blessing of His Eminence, Metropolitan Joseph, you're joining the full-time staff of Ancient Faith Ministries with the title of Chief Content Officer. And I wonder if you would like to tell us, what does that mean? That's kind of an unusual title, Chief
Yeah,
Content Officer.
thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited. So, Chief Content Officer is a title that exists in the media industry, but probably isn't too familiar to most people outside of it. Basically, a chief content officer is the person who helps kind of set the tone and the overall theme for the content that are produced by a media organization. How that plays out varies a lot from one organization to another. But in my case, the biggest focus is going to be on that second word, content.
Yeah.
So I'll be mostly making lots more content, and but I'll also have a role in deciding which books, which podcasts, which blogs, and so forth see the light of day. And I'll also be helping to recruit and to mentor new content creators.
With the growth of Ancient Faith Ministries, I mean, we now have some 40,000 episodes of podcasts online from 137 different podcasts. We get about 325 to 350,000 downloads every month of these podcasts. And our book line is growing dramatically. I just came out of a publishing team meeting where we were trying to manage the schedule because of so many more new books than we've ever published before. And it's all because the need is great. And it became obvious early on that we needed help with managing this content, with understanding what are we getting in terms of proposals, how are we evaluating their compatibility with our mission. And it became unwieldy for us to try to do that without someone with your knowledge, with your experience, and with your good and true sense of mission that we were able to make this decision. Now, some people are kind of scratching their heads saying, now, wait a minute, didn't you just announce to us that you were in financial trouble and that you needed some desperate help during this coronavirus because of the loss of revenue? And I would say to that, yes, we did. And yes, that truly was and is needed. But here's the thing about this position, and I'm going to ask you to explain more in a second. This decision to add this position was made well before the virus. You have to understand, we had to work with the Archdiocese and with His Eminence Metropolitan Joseph just to get him to understand what we wanted to do, that we're taking away one of his top and most trusted priests in his archdiocese to work full-time with us. So that takes a lot of, as Desi used to tell Lucy, we had a lot of splaining to do. And so we took the time to do that. And Father Andrew and Bobby were actually in Englewood to interview him, and took even more time. Father Andrew met personally with His Eminence, and he came to understand the value and the need for this, and he was very willing to give his blessing and to assign a replacement for you there in Emmaus so that we could move on. But tell us, why is that such a complicated procedure? What's going on when a priest has to be and is assigned to a different position?
Yeah, it's an immense undertaking, actually, because in the Antiochian Archdiocese, really within any Orthodox church, it's not a question of sort of like listing a job opening and interviewing a bunch of potential candidates. I mean, that's not the way that it works. What happens is that the Metropolitan has to decide where he's going to put his clergy. And so usually around the summertime, there's a whole bunch of transfers that happen all at once.
Yeah.
And the reason why it happens in summertime, the reason why it happens all at once is because that's when all of the new seminary graduates are graduating and they need jobs, right? So in addition to them as well, there's clergy that want to transfer for one reason or another. There are clergy that are retiring. It's like one of those puzzles, where you move one piece and then you move another piece and you get all your squares in order and have to try to make it exactly right. You can't just lay a bunch of them off and say, sorry, have a good time in finding a new job. So it's a complicated process, and it's like really setting up a whole bunch of dominoes. I mean, you can come up with lots of metaphors for this. But once the decision had been made by Metropolitan Joseph to assign me to Ancient Faith Ministries, which actually is a department of the Archdiocese, so it's in some sense it's a kind of an internal move. They started working on who was going to be my successor, and that had been decided a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's not just him, right? All the pieces have to fit all over the whole continent. And so to make any kind of last minute changes like, oh, sorry, we're not going to do that. It's just not even possible. And honestly, it would be very disruptive to all the people involved in the process. So even though, it was a little scary, God has provided, as we saw, with a really great fundraiser that came through, and then some other things as well. And I'm very confident to move into this position and believe in Ancient Faith's future. And I'm super grateful to Metropolitan Joseph for also having the confidence, not just in me personally, but also in Ancient Faith as a ministry that reaches not just people in the Antiochian Archdiocese, and even not just Orthodox people in the United States or Canada, but really all over the world. So, I mean, it's a huge responsibility, and but I'm so happy to be able to do it, and excited, just
Well,
really excited.
His Eminence has such a heart for pan-orthodoxy, and he has always encouraged us to stay broad in our approach and reach as many people as possible. And so he resonated with this position and with the mission of what we're trying to accomplish here, and with you on board. So very much. It was encouraging, and he's a real cheerleader for this ministry, and we greatly, greatly appreciate it. So, Father Andrew, what will you do? What does the work of a content officer, chief content officer, entail?
Well, it's like I said, it's mostly about the content, particularly in our case. It sounds like it's a big administrative job, and there's going to be administrative parts to it, but really the main thing is going to be about making stuff. So, for example, there are kinds of podcasts that I can make in my spare time as a full-time pastor, but then there's other kinds that it's really hard to be able to devote the time and the effort needed, right? So, like, recording a sermon is not that big of a deal. I just put the recorder out on the lectern, preach the sermon, upload it, and the producer, puts it together and takes care of it. And it's not very complex. But for instance, if you've listened to the documentary I did about Father Nicola Yanni, which is called The Equal of Martyrdom,
Yeah.
About the priest out there in Nebraska in the early 20th century, that was, I think, something like 30 or 40 separate audio tracks that had to be woven together along with music and scripting and all kinds of stuff. And that's not the kind of thing you can just sit down and do in an afternoon. That takes a lot of work. And it wasn't just me doing it either, right? So Ancient Faith has producers that are on staff who are doing this work as well. And then there's also marketing people who are trying to tell people about what we're making.
Yep.
And in order for this kind of high quality media to be done, it needs to be done at a professional level, right? So that's why it really has to have full-time people involved. There's only so much that someone can do in their spare time. And so that's an example of the kind of thing that we might be doing more of. For instance, I have some potential pilgrimages planned, to take some trips and to connect with people there and to interview them and to capture their stories. There's so many stories that can be done, and having someone whose job it is to go get those stories and help tell those stories just opens up a world of possibilities. I mean, there's all kinds of content that we're not making right now because most people are doing this just in their spare time, or part of another job or something like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be mainly about the content, but then also about connecting new content makers to each other in many cases, to the work that Ancient Faith is doing, giving them a platform if they're an appropriate person to have a platform, but then also Ancient Faith has a kind of journalistic side to what they do, covering events, interviewing people, engaging in sometimes even in controversial questions. This is all part of what Ancient Faith does. And that's hard to do if all the people you have on staff are mostly support staff and are not the people making the content.
Yeah.
So this expands what Ancient Faith is capable of doing. Frankly, other kinds of Christians in America have had people doing this kind of work for a century now. Mm-hmm. And we're just now kind of stepping into it. But I think it's time. It's absolutely time. I think that the maturity of Orthodoxy in America has made this kind of thing possible now. And my hope actually is that I'm going to be just one of the first of lots to come.
So here's
Many
a good
people.
question from Aaron Saxon. Will Father Andrew remain while taking his position?
Yeah, so I will definitely remain a priest. I'm not being deposed from the priesthood, but I won't be a pastor anymore. So, in the Orthodox Church, pastors are generally priests, but not all priests are pastors. So I will still be serving at the altar. I will still be doing priestly ministry, but in a secondary capacity at the parish where I am now. I'm not moving, thank God. I get to stay in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. But there's going to be a new pastor at my parish, and everything that I do at the parish related to ministry is going to be in obedience to him and working together with him. The great thing is that he's already a good friend of mine.
Yeah, good.
His name is Father Joseph. I'm so happy he's coming. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to him being here. So yeah, I will still be a priest. I'm not being not being deposed, thank God. But I won't be a pastor anymore. So that's really the difference.
So let's talk about that office space in Emmaus where you will work. Obviously, you'll need to vacate the church office, and there's no space for you to work out of your home with your family. So you have an office space that you're going to be moving into, and we're also going to build a studio there. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's only one office in the church. And my house, even if we could find a place in the house, I have four children, ranging from ages 3 to 13. So unless everyone is sleeping, it's never quiet at my house, which is kind of necessary for a recording studio. So yeah, we found a place that's half a mile from my house and actually half a mile from the church as well, on Main Street, right here in Emmaus. Emmaus is a small town, but it's next to some larger towns. It's next to downtown Pennsylvania. Um, and I'll be up on the second floor of that red brick building that you can see in the slides there. And, you can also see, right now it's just basically kind of a blank space. But you can look out one of the windows there and see the view out over the rooftops of Emmaus. And it's about, I don't know, 220, 230 square feet. One part of it will have my desk where I'll, do writing and, communicate and probably do most of my work there. But then another part's going to have a table with some chairs at it where I can sit down with people and record with them, whether they're present with me there in the studio or, they're connecting remotely from somewhere else. And and there's also going to be a place there for prayer because that's really, really critical that we have a place of prayer wherever we are. And I'm naming the studio after St. Raphael of Brooklyn, so you can see his
Right.
icon there in one of the photos. The first thing I moved into the office are icons, and I set him right up there on the windowsill. It's a great old building. The walls are really thick. You could actually sit down in the windows. It's like that. Great old building like that. And I'm just really excited about being there. And I'll be able to walk to work most days and walk to church from the studio. I love living in this little town. And when we first started talking about this, the thing that I kept on saying over and over to everyone involved was, there is no version of this scenario that involves me moving. So, that I would agree to. So yeah, I'm staying in town, and I'm looking forward to it. There's a great little coffee house right across the street. So, if you ever come to Emmaus, please come and visit, and come on up to the studio once we get it put together.
Well, here's an interesting question from Daniel. Will you be hosting a pilgrimage?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've never actually been like the leader on a pilgrimage before, other than just sort of small ones, from my parish where we've gone to a monastery and together. But I would certainly be open to that. I would probably need some help because if I'm going on a pilgrimage and I'm recording with people and that kind of thing, probably need somebody to help kind of lead it as well. But I'm open to anything. As soon as, especially as we're able to travel a lot more after. Some of the pandemic conditions are over. In a lot of ways, the sky's the limit. I have a lot of big ideas. We'll see what happens.
Well, we have built a lot of studios now across the country trying to expand our reach and our network so that we can bring you more content, more live shows. It's getting to the point now where we have 3 or 4 live shows every week. I say 3 or 4 because we do have one on Wednesday night. We had it last night. That's the first Wednesday of every month, and that's Bill Marianas. So there are studios that are installed in Bill Marianas's home, in Father Evan Armitas's home, in Elisa Bielatich, in the Lowe's home, at Jeannie Constantinu's home, at Father Barnabas Powell's home, and St. Tikhon Seminary. And we have been given a grant from the Leadership 100 group to build 3 more studios. And part of that money will be used for your St. Raphael studio there in Emmaus, but you also raised some money yourself last year to help equip it. We're also going to be building a studio for Stephen Cristoforo so that he and Christian Gonzalez can do some more programming. And we're going to be putting one at Holy Cross Hellenic College so that we can have a good partnership there. And pretty soon at St. Vladimir's. So we'll have studios at all 3 major seminaries and eventually even some of the smaller ones. We'll have your new studio, and these can all have live programming coming from them, but they can also connect with each other. I mean, imagine you'll be able to sit in your studio there in Emmaus and bring in somebody from St. Tikhon's and have a live conversation just like you were in the same room. The quality will be that stellar, and take calls and explore different topics. So really, there's no limit into what can happen here, and this is an important next step.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's been amazing to me actually to connect with some of this technology already, even without my own studio. And it's always fun when a listener asks me, so what's it like having all those people visit you in Emmaus, for you to do all these interviews? And I say, well, actually, mostly they're not here.
Yeah.
But it sounds that way. It's really great.
Well,
What an age we live in, really.
Yeah, really. Nicholas in Greece just wrote and says, "Come to Greece. I will host you a great experience." I may have to take that one myself, actually.
Yeah. Nicholas, I went to Greece a couple of years ago on pilgrimage and had an amazing time in and around Thessaloniki and on the Holy Mountain. And I feel like I only just scratched the surface of, what an amazing country that place is.
Well, so you did a little teaser with your followers on social media, telling them there's going to be a big announcement. And then you had a lot of suggestions as to what that announcement might entail. What did you find?
Yeah, yeah. So I was, it's funny. I didn't say, "Does anybody want to guess?" But instantly, there were numerous guesses that were made. So I thought we could just share 5 of them actually. So one person said, "You've been cast in a role for the next Lord of the Rings movie,"
That's
which
plausible.
I mean that would be a dream. I mean, you could see him. You see my picture. I'm currently in my hobbit hole here. At least that's what my virtual background suggests. Yeah, I would love to be a Lord of the Rings film for sure, but not yet, not yet. Another one said, "You're starting a Protestant megachurch," and then all kinds of people commented on how that might even be possible.
Yes, exactly.
Another one said, "You and Father Stephen DeYoung are going to morph together like Power Rangers and become Father Andrew Stephen DeYoung." The funny thing about that is that he and I both had the same job at 2 different times. And while I had it, there was one person who called me Father Stephen almost the whole time. And then on his last day, she called him Father Andrew. And I felt like the circle was finally complete.
Yes, it's
So
complete.
we are good friends, though, for sure.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
Father Andrew also had his own suggestion that somehow had to do with cheese.
Oh, yeah, Father Stephen. Yes, yes. Father
Father
Stephen
Stephen, yeah.
suggested I was going to announce that I had invented cheddar cheese.
Well, again, plausible.
I think cheddar might predate me. I haven't
Yeah.
looked up the history on that.
Yeah. And what's this
And
all
yes,
about?
yes, and one person suggested that this might possibly be another Rickroll. I'm never going to give that up. I'm never going to let it down.
Oh,
But
come on.
no, not a Rickroll.
I I am not that hip, but I know those lyrics right there.
Yeah, yeah. Listeners, I literally had to send the Wikipedia article on Rick Rolling to John to
You
help fill
did.
him in on what
Yes. Yes.
what this all was
This
about.
is
And
true. I said, you
and
want
one
to
other
do a
person,
Rick
one other
who?
person suggested that I was going to get front row tickets to the first post-pandemic Striper concert, um, so also known as the Yellow and Black Attack.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, this is truly exciting. Mike says this is very exciting. I have wondered why Orthodoxy doesn't have more of a presence online the way Americanized Protestants do. Well, hang on, it's coming. It's coming. We've got plans, as they say.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Father Andrew, for accepting this challenge. Our team is very excited. And you're not even on staff yet, but you've already shown yourself to be so valuable in your advice as you sat in on some of our meetings. You went with us to our staff retreat last year, knowing that this was in the works even before it had been approved. And just such valuable input, and you've helped us grow. And I think that's only going to exponentially increase starting August 1st.
Thank God. Thank God. Yeah. I mean, we've been a great fit for years already. So I'm really excited for this next chapter. Not just for me, and not just for Ancient Faith also, but really I think for the future of Orthodox Christian media ministry here in North America and of course all over the world. So I'm just
Well,
glad I get to be a part of it.
Raphael says, next step, Thomas Soroka Studio. Too late. It's already done.
That's right.
I failed to
Father
mention
Tom has
that
his own
earlier.
studio.
We traveled out there to the Pittsburgh area last year and installed a studio there, and he uses that every single Tuesday night. And you're missing some good programming if you're not tuning in on Tuesday nights to the program that is the legacy of Kevin Allen of blessed memory, Ancient Faith Today. And now Father Tom Soroka has taken that. Here's one from Germany. Hi, Bogdan. Greetings from Germany. We follow you, especially after Orthodoxy and Non Orthodoxy podcast. I think he means Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy.
Right,
But
right.
thank you so much. Nice to have you listening there in Germany. And this is amazing, Father. The breadth of the countries that we hear from, some 140 different countries that have corresponded with us or downloaded podcasts. And the world is shrinking, with
Yeah.
this technology. And I think there are just some great possibilities for that to even include more growth. So, Father, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. Your prayers, please, for us as we pray for you. And we also ask all of our audience, our listeners, our viewers to pray for us that God will keep us strong and focused, that we will be diligent in our work, and that we will never fail in our commitment to Christ and His church. That's it. I'm John Maddox. Thank you, Father Andrew Stephen Damick, for joining us.